Hello, everyone. My name is Zinhle Ngema. Feel free to call me Z while you practice. And welcome to Diaspora Whores. Yes. Welcome to Diaspora Whores. Diaspora Whores. Hey, this is a talk space I'm creating to share and speak to my experience as a whore of the diaspora. I'm originally from Johannesburg, South Africa, and I've lived in the United States, specifically New York City, for almost 7 years now. I almost said 20, but that I'm a child, so that doesn't even make sense. It has been a very eye-opening experience living here, being a part of the Black and African diaspora now. And yeah, I've come to the conclusion that we are all truly whores of the diaspora. Let's start off with the name because I know that that's probably jarring for a lot of people. First and foremost, my mom knows about the name. My mom has made peace with the name, so I'm not changing it. Sorry, if you don't like it, excuse, but that ship has sailed. That ship has sailed. I grew up stressing my parents out, and as I've gotten older, I've realized that I don't need to ask for their permission, but I need to give them a heads up, and I have. So the name is staying. I came up with the name with my best friend and almost co-host Noëlle Lilley. She's alive. I don't know why that sounded like she isn't, but she's alive and well. She's actually my first guest on this episode, and she will be a recurring guest because she is one of the parents of Diaspora Whores. We came up with the name in a coffee shop on 142nd when we were brainstorming ideas for a podcast we wanted to start. And I think she said Diaspora Wars, which is obviously Diaspora Whores is a play on that. For those who don't know, Diaspora Wars are essentially infighting within the Black community, whether it's about culture, heritage, who owns what, blah, 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 blah. And I understand Diaspora Wars to be manufactured. It's a lot of distraction, I think. The more, what is that? Divide and conquer. We are all so similar, and being in the diaspora now, in the Black African diaspora, has made me realize that we have so many shared experiences, both positive and negative. And so harping on the negatives is just a way to keep us distracted and not focused on the actual problem, which is, I know you know. When Noëlle said Diaspora Wars, we were like, no. If people tuned into a podcast called Diaspora Wars and it was us two giggling, they'd probably be upset. And so I said, well, what about Diaspora Whores? And then we giggled and moved on. But then we just kept coming back to Diaspora Whores because it's funny. It's funny. And let me explain to you how I understand the title. So diaspora, let me look. So the definition I'm taking this from is an online book. I think it's a journal. It's a social science journal that was posted. Encyclopedia of Diasporas, Immigrant and Refugee Cultures Around the World. And their definition of diaspora. First of all, I used to say diaspora, and then my mom very aggressively told me it was wrong. But their definition is a people dispersed by whatever cause to more than one location. The people dispersed to different lands may harbor thoughts of return, may not fully assimilate to their host countries, and may maintain relationships with other communities in the diaspora. So I believe that we are all having a diasporic experience in some capacity. I don't know if diasporic is a word, but all words are made up. So now we're making up this one. It could be quite literal, like me being from South Africa and moving to the United States. If you are a Black American in New York City, you most likely have some sort of Caribbean, South American, or African ancestry, and celebrate that, which makes you a part of the diaspora. If you are foundationally Black American, totally 100%, but you know where you came from down the line, right? And even now, if you have family dishes that contain rice, that's part of the diaspora. If you are if you live in an area that you've lived in your whole life, but the community around you has changed, and there are now Jamaicans or Ghanaians or Senegalese, whatever it is, you are having a diasporic experience. Let's talk about the whites. Y'all too Do you know how growing up in South Africa, my white friends would say, my grandmother's German. Oh, yeah. I'm South African, but I'm Greek South African. Y'all are part of the diaspora. If you're here in the US and you claim you're German, Irish, great, whatever the fuck, and so you only drink Guinness and now you watch Irish rugby, you are part of the diaspora. We are all in some way English. The English language was forced on us by our colonizers so that they could understand what we were saying, so we could communicate with them. But now we all speak it in the diaspora to connect, to stay connected, and to communicate with each other. So we are all in some way, in my opinion, in a part of the diaspora. The whole part comes because, I'm a woman. So like, hee. I love myself. I respect myself. If you would like to come to the conclusion that me referring to myself as a diaspora whore means I don't, that's between you and God, babe. And again, enjoy. But the whole part is we are all whores to capitalism. And the diaspora exists as it does because of capitalism. Whether it's straight up slavery, enslaving people, kidnapping them from their land and bringing them here, they're now part of the diaspora. Part of the definition was a people dispersed by whatever cause to more than one location. More often than not, people leave their home countries in search of better resources, better opportunities to make money. It's all tied to capitalism. So yeah, we're whores of the diaspora because we are whores to capitalism, and the diaspora exists because of capitalism. That's where the name comes from. So yeah, I'm creating this podcast. I've created this podcast because I want us to talk. I want us to emphasize how similar we are. I want us to realize how much of our fighting and so much of our separation is by design. Divide and conquer. There is no way to the easiest way to control someone is through their ego, is through fear. And that is what a lot of, in my opinion, the diaspora wars are intended to do. So through the conversations I'm having here, I hope to, as the late great Walter Rodney said, I'm reading How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, and girl, I am so mad, but a lot of it is just validating. Anyway, I hope through Diaspora Whores to create a revolutionary, socialist, and people-centered perspective, and for us to just, chat and stuff. So yeah, that's the purpose. I'm going to have guests throughout the series from different parts of the Black diaspora, the African diaspora, and just, talk about our similarities, talk about the ways that they are existing as a Black person. Most of them are Black people who are flourishing in their industries, and that is not an easy thing to do because, again, by design, we're not supposed to exceed certain barriers that have been placed on us, no matter where you are. Okay, so now that we talked about the heavy stuff, also this is episode 1, and so it'll all get better in time. Where's Leona Lewis? No, focus. And by that, I mean, I'm going to have multiple cameras. I want to do a whole, I was going to do a mirror wall, but now that I'm thinking that isn't going to work. So I just need some sort of gold framed things around, but baby steps, we'll figure it out. A little bit about me. Like I said, my name is Zinhle. I'm Zulu. I am from South Africa. I moved to the US when I was 22 to get my master's in journalism. I work as a journalist. I work for a publication called OK Africa, and that has been an invaluable experience. They do not teach Africans about Africa. When I was in South Africa in school, I think we learned about apartheid 5 years in a row. Apartheid, the Anglo-Boer War, Lily's Leaf, a bunch of things, but it was always the same subject, but we just kind of built on it. There is so much other South African history that I just had never come across because I was never taught it in school. There's so much about Africa and Africans that I did not know. And so I'm so grateful for the company I work for, the publication I work for, how our community engages with us, because I have learned so much in my time there. And what's also crazy is I pay my bills talking to people and interviewing people, and yet doing this for myself, I've always been I can't do that. How am I just going to interview people and edit it and put it on the internet? How would I do that? The brain is so silly. The brain is so silly, but I love her at the same time. She's now my bestie. I was interested in journalism. Well, I didn't know it was journalism. I just knew that I liked talking to people, and I knew I liked listening to people, because from a young age, I was aware of the fact that we are all having different experiences. We are all having unique experiences here. And I'm so fascinated by that. Even this conversation, we're not experiencing in the same way. And that is so fascinating to me. And I grew up privileged in the sense that I never had to worry about when my next meal would be, if I had a bed to sleep in, if I could get to school, if I had a school uniform. I never had to worry about stuff like that. And I'm grateful that my parents made me aware of the fact that that is a privilege, especially being in South Africa. My mom was very clear about the fact that the Black experience I had in South Africa was not a Black experience that other South Africans, it wasn't a similar experience for all Black South Africans. And that was always really, really, really interesting to me. And I always loved writing. I always loved communication. And so I figured then it was my responsibility to be a platform or provide a platform for people to be heard, because that is what we want as human beings. We want to be heard, and we want to connect, and we want to feel a part of something. And what I failed to acknowledge and recognize was that I too am having a unique experience, and I too have, perspectives that are interesting to people. So here I am sharing it. My time being in New York City and being a part of the Black and African diaspora has been very, very fascinating. Americans are victims. Americans are victims. They have been told that this is the best of the best, that this is the cream of the crop, that they're the best nation in the world. And like I'm saying, you feed someone's ego, they're less likely to question it. And also, if you don't teach them media literacy, if you don't teach them critical thinking, then they don't think critically and look between the lines. But Americans are victims, you guys. But at the same time, we have that same mentality in Africa. I mean, Nigerians refer to themselves in Nigeria as the giant of Africa. My baby, the giant in what? Like, sure, if there's a famous African, they're most likely to be from Nigeria. But what does that give to Nigeria besides like props, And South Africa is the same. When I was growing up, I remember even Black South Africans would refer to South Africa as the Europe of Africa in a positive way. Like they were saying it like it's good. The Europe of Africa. What does that do for us? Oh, because white people own 70% of the land and most of the wealth? Okay, girl, you ate that. I'll give you that. Sure, we are the Europe of Africa. Okay. And I'm not saying that to harsh anyone's vibe. No, I am. I'm harshing your vibe. But I want us to start reading between the lines. I need us to start thinking critically and questioning what we've been told, because a lot of it is by design. We're being told things because we're being sold ideologies all the time. If you see ads on TV, it looks like they're just, hee hee ha ha, oh, O'Reilly's. Like, why do I know that jingle? You're being sold something. Okay, I'm digressing. My experience being Black has been complicated. South Africa's 80% Black, but a lot of the spaces I occupied when I was growing up were white. I went to an all-girls high school, and I was one of 5 Black girls. It's so bizarre now that I think about it. But that was just my normal. They were always white people. I grew up feeling like I wasn't a part of the majority. When I watched TV, the beautiful people were white people. I didn't want to look like Serena Williams. I wanted to look like Serena van der Woodsen, because she was the perfect girl. The skinny blonde woman who I would never look like was my aspiration, because that's what I was told was beautiful. I wasn't told that Black is beautiful, even though that was a slogan here, and my mom did her best. She did her best. And my mom was one of the first, Black woman on TV in South Africa. And yet I still it was just such a bizarre experience for me. I was darker. I grew up overweight. I'm Zulu, so these thighs, bitch. These thighs tell stories. And I hated it when I was growing up because, yeah, like I was saying, I wasn't ever told, I wasn't ever made to believe that was beautiful, that I was beautiful. But at the same time, I have always been obsessed with Black women. I have always been obsessed with Black women. Oh my gosh, I remember just the way, like my mom's mates and my friends' parents, their moms, the way they carried themselves, the way they dressed, the careers they had, the way they spoke to each other, the way they smiled, the way they smelled, the way they made me feel. I was just always obsessed with Black women. And once I came to the realization that I too was a Black woman, I was like, wait, maybe I am valuable. Wait, maybe I should like myself. So crazy. This podcast will mostly feature Black women. Like I said, I'm reading a lot of literature about imperialism on the continent, African autonomy and stuff like that, but it's a lot of men. And it's enough now, I want women to be a part of the conversation. I want women to stake our claim as leaders. And so I'm creating this space for myself, I'm creating it for my community, and I'm creating it for you. Hopefully you enjoy this and this is something you would be interested in watching again. What else did I want to say? Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited. I'm not creating this because I want to be famous. I'm not creating this because I want people to look up to me. I do not want people to look up to me. I want us to look amongst each other and learn and listen and grow and evolve and just overpower. The power of the people is always greater than the people in power. And I'm hoping that this space will help us reconcile with the fact that we need to unite and we need to come together if shit is going to change. So yeah, that's me. My first guest, as I said, is what a woman. I love her so much. We went to grad school together and we lived together in Harlem, and now we still live like 20 minutes away from each other. And she's my best friend and I love her and she's amazing. And her name is Noëlle Lilley. Hey!
I'm here.
Hey, girl.
Hey, girl.
Okay, so who are you? What do you do? Where are you from?
My name is Noëlle. I am a journalist here in New York City. I'm from California originally. I work in multimedia, mostly broadcast television. And I also do a little bit of creative writing books, movie reviews, book reviews on social and stuff. So yeah.
Okay, and how do we know each other?
We went to grad school together.
Yeah.
And our former roomies.
Yeah.
And housewives extraordinaire.
Yes. All of that.
Besties, great friends. But we went to CUNY, Graduate School of Journalism, Craig Newmark, together. And we weren't even really in any classes or knew each other.
I think I remember us interacting once.
Yeah, it's in just a hello.
Just oh, hey. How you feeling?
Because we were in no, that's what it was. We were in different concentrations. Yes. So we didn't really get to, but then we ended up living together because life happens in crazy ways.
It does. But it worked out beautifully because we have so much in common, but we grew up in completely different parts of the world.
Yes.
And it's just been so divine to meet someone at this phase of life that just gets me. And is also having a very similar experience.
Right. No, we can relate to so many things, being our same age, being on our careers, you're saying, being Black girls from different parts of the world, but still so similar. And I always thought that was so funny when we were first really getting to hang out and stuff, living together, and being wait.
How do you know that?
The same song. How do we have this same experience?
Yeah. Okay.
Falling in love.
I know. Life is really just, she's that girl.
Yeah.
Okay, so you grew up in California. Mm-hmm. You have explained your experience to me, and it is so beautiful and Black. Growing up in the church, growing up in your community, in your neighborhood. So what was your experience like being Black? When did you first realize you were Black?
So big. Right. I always feel I had a very clear identity and a clear understanding that I was Black from a young age. Mm-hmm. Growing up in Southern California, I definitely had other Black classmates. Like, I went to a church that was predominantly Black, but I also was in a lot of spaces where I was the only Black person, or maybe one of just a few, often like in school, but I did like musical theater, so like in other like extracurricular spaces too. And so I definitely always had the experience of being like, okay, I know I'm different. And my mom would like, she tells me that there were times when I would like when I was like drawing doodles as a child to go with like stories I was writing and stuff, I would always like draw the brown kids. Like, I always was like, where's the brown crayon? Like, stories I was writing as a little girl, there were always like little Black kids in the stories. I wanted the Black Barbie dolls. Like, I definitely had an understanding of like, I see me.
Right.
And my dad was very like pro-Black. He was very like into like Pan-Africanism. He would talk to my sister and I a lot about, you know, being of African descent, about being Black and like being Black in America and like what that meant historically, what that meant, you know, present day. So it definitely was something that I was very much aware of, and I felt like I was like in different spaces where I would be in spaces where I was around other Black people, but I had been in spaces where I wasn't too. So I kind of knew what it was like to be in both. So I definitely felt, but it was like feeling like the minority usually in my life. And it was like just those few sacred spaces that were like Black community predominantly.
Okay. Interesting. My experience was honestly kind of similar. And I grew up in South Africa. I've told you that I was one of the few Black girls in my school. And that was such a jarring experience because then you go out of it and everyone's Black. But it was a private school, and so there were certain spaces that if I occupied them, I was, like you're saying, one of the few Black people. And that is such a testament to obviously the socioeconomic and the apartheid era things that was still kind of dwindling when I was growing up. Because, I mean, you grew up in San Bernardino, right?
San Bernardino, California,
and that's a predominantly Black and Hispanic area, right?
Shifting demographics, it definitely, I would say overall, is predominantly Latino.
Okay.
Large populations of Black Americans and other just people of Black and African descent. But I would say, like, it was kind of the experience of, like, maybe not even just my hometown, but almost like at a young age having an experience of like my wider place in America too, or maybe like even just like in California, you know what I mean? Well, I mean, yeah.
Okay, yeah, but no.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, but yeah. Because I mean, because it's a very interesting dichotomy that it's like, yes, it's in a town that has very large communities of color and very large like Black and brown communities, but it could still be very much those people are not empowered, or those people are not in all the spaces you might be in. And so it is like kind of, but then when I was in elementary school, it was predominantly white. Elementary through middle. High school was the first time that I went to a school that was predominantly Black and Latino. But it was yeah, it's interesting. And I feel like when you're describing your experience, it's like, yeah, it's just like being in like different experiences depending on where you are, you know?
Right. Yeah. And there's still a lot of economic disparities in South Africa based on race. And so like I've said in the introduction, I grew up being aware of the fact that I was privileged in comparison. And my mom was very good at explaining that we weren't having a typical Black experience in South Africa because we were not like living in a palace at the same time. But like I explained, I didn't have to worry about my next meal and like clothes and stuff like that. So I knew that other Black South Africans were having a different experience, but it was still like. And I say that to say then the places that I would be in, they weren't a lot of Black people because of the life that my parents were able to afford me. But I still had family and I still had friends that were. I've always had a Black best friend. I've always had.
And no matter what phase of life, you know, that was always something that I was like seeking out.
Right.
Yeah.
But part of the experience was us being one of the few and us having a different experience.
Yeah. And I feel like I talked in college. I remember my best friend Jasmine from college. She also grew up. Shout out to Juicy J. She also we were talking about having similar experiences and that forcing you in a positive way, to seek out Black friendships though with other like Black women. Like anytime I was at a conference or at a new job or in like that's like my automatic thought. I'm like, hey girl, like immediately like what's up, you know? And I love that. And I know that maybe that's not always the experience. If you might take it for granted sometimes when you are used to being in the majority. When you have that comfort, you don't always have to seek it out in your day-to-day life. So it definitely like pushed me to do that with female friendships and just people in general.
Okay, so when was the first time you experienced non-American Black people? And non-American, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So not many throughout my childhood. Most of the Black people I knew growing up prior to moving to the East Coast, especially, were Black American, descendants of American slavery. But I did have one Nigerian classmate that I can remember from high school. She actually does like influencer stuff now too, as well, I believe. And then I had a Afro-Latino fellow church member. I don't know what to call him because he was like older than me. Deacon Cordoba, shout out to Deacon Cordoba. And Fola, shout out to Fola. So not many. And that was definitely something that moving to New York and living on the East Coast, and I spent some time in DC and I experienced a little bit of it there. And that was definitely like a different experience of meeting Black folks who were from the Caribbean, specifically like here in New York, or Black folks from just all over the diaspora. And of course, like having the knowledge that those people are out there, but just not being people who I met in my day-to-day life. In college, it was different though. In college, by the time I went to college, I had a lot of classmates from all over the world. Okay. But my experience of like growing up, my foundational relationships with Black folks growing up were mostly Black American people. Okay. So yeah, it's been so interesting now living in New York and getting to like meet Black folks from all over the world.
So what were the first interactions you had of non-Black Americans in media?
In media.
I remember you telling me about seeing ads with
Oh, I was gonna say The Color of Friendship.
You guys, please watch.
Then the girl was white. So
The Color of Friendship. It's a Disney original movie.
Some of you have seen it. Some of you out there have seen it.
It's set in South Africa, and it's during apartheid, and they call her. Just go watch it. It's very fascinating.
Yes, it's like a Black American family meeting a South African transfer student.
Right.
And it's like, oh, but we're all human.
We're all
human.
Inside.
Right.
Amanda. Right. Totally.
So maybe that, but I don't know if that was a good example because the characters predominantly. I mean, there are Black South Africans in the movie, but they're not main characters.
And the main character is the South African girl's American.
The actress?
Yeah. Did we Google her?
I can't remember.
Because that accent wasn't giving. No offense to that child.
So if you're saying not just representation on screen, but actual authentic representation?
See, and that's actually something I want to get into. Well, at some point, but The Lion King, to me, it has never been an African movie. It's an American movie about Africa, right? And so, but that's not to take away from.
And also animals and like,
you know what I mean?
Like being like that counts. It's like there's music happening,
right?
We can put people, like, you know.
Right.
But
tea.
That too, you know.
Like how Princess and the Frog, she's a frog.
She's a frog most of it, which I do love that movie. But
I do love that movie.
But
okay.
She is. But
wow. See, we could just anyway.
just go and go.
We actually should make a mental note about that. We'll
circle back to that.
We'll be back. We'll be back. Okay. I remember you telling me about. Oh, you go.
No, you go.
Okay. Should I go back to The Lion King, or should I say the point that I was going to say before?
You would say about the commercials and the advertisements.
Yes, with the flies on the babies.
Yeah. I do remember, like, in elementary school, seeing on Saturday mornings campaigns, like hour-long infomercials in the morning about, like feeding funds toward African countries and children starving in like Sudan and places. And that was definitely like the first images I remember seeing like at a very early age. And I remember watching it and crying too. I remember
you are a crier.
I am.
You feel things.
On Saturday mornings, waking up, and I knew it would come on every Saturday morning.
And
I would go watch. Like, regular kids are watching cartoons. little baby Noëlle in America trying to understand who she is in the world. That's what I was watching. But yeah, I do remember that. And you know,
That's tough. That's tough because you are selling an ideology as much as it is please donate.
Right.
And what's so sick and just a little note in my mind is you're saying feeding children in Sudan, and that probably was what it was, but Sudan has now been in another proxy war for the last 3 years, and to think that the Sudanese experience has been tainted by so much trauma and war and like
for decades,
and it's like it's just so sick. So free Sudan.
Yes. And also with that, it was like maybe The Mummy. That was it. That's like the only, and again,
that is Egypt.
That right, but then again, not the actors. All. Nobody.
The guy who played the Scorpion King is South African.
Okay. Period. And the second one. Is that the first one?
No, the guy who played... the Scorpion King was the Rock. Imhotep.
Yes, okay,
Imhotep was South African.
Shout out.
Okay,
I didn't know that. But definitely not Rachel Wise.
No. Brendan Fraser.
George of the Jungle. What's his name?
Yeah.
Brendan Fraser, yes. Brendan Fraser.
No.
Love them both.
Love them both.
People,
amazing films.
Neither.
But absolutely.
Nobody else
probably,
involved.
probably one mention that they're
then
in
they have
Africa.
The Rock in one later, also not involved at all Egyptian.
So, they've never been like authentic representation of Africa in American cinema.
No, and what I did know of African representation outside of that was just stuff my dad told me. Right. And that was more also like historical stuff.
Right.
That was
we were kings.
We was kings. And about apartheid. Like my dad did talk to us about that and other things, but not as much like just modern experiences. Right. Like not just like everyday
humanizing
representation of just life and like,
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
That is so crazy. Because on the other hand, I grew up with American shit down my throat. When I was watching TV and growing up, when I thought of like black girls on TV, I thought of Raven. I definitely did watch local shows, but it wasn't the same. Like, you guys are really good at entertainment because it's like a tool of propaganda. And it's like an export and
resources. And access.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's obviously like I want to watch the flashiest. I want to watch the funniest and like So I was watching a lot of Disney and a lot of Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. Yeah. And I used to watch our version of Sesame. Our version of Sesame Street was Takalani Sesame. And so I think maybe each country might have their own iterations of Sesame Street.
Shout out to PBS. Because they do amazing things.
They said if you're going to have it, be authentic.
In Sesame Street, I guess that's a good example. I don't remember the people on Sesame Street, though. I remember, like,
characters.
Yes, like Big Bird and stuff.
Right.
But there were definitely, Sesame Street was better about diverse representation across the... Because they had an Afro-Latina... I forget her name, maybe Rosa, but she was like an Afro-Latina character on there. So some non-American black representation, but very, very little.
Very little.
What was that like for you, being now having references that people here don't get, but then references that you're expected to get?
Oh, yeah.
Is that annoying?
It's not well, it can be, but my response is always, we don't know all the same thing at the same time.
Right.
And also, like, I grew up in Africa.
Don't forget, guys.
Don't forget. Like, thanks for thinking I'm gang, but, like, I'm here on a visa. Like, let's keep it tight. But definitely my coworkers have educated me a lot. But, yeah, they'll be like, oh, you don't know this?
You never saw.
And I'm like, sorry, I don't know Project Pat. Like, I just got here, guys.
It'll be so niche, too.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Funny.
But, I mean, yeah, I'll say things. Like, for example, Nyash. I was saying, do you know what that means?
I do, but only within the last couple years.
And because she's marrying a Ghanaian, so like you're in it. But I was saying to my friend Sean, Nyash, and he's like, what? And I'm like, it means butt. What do you mean? But I will also be, again, that's like a language thing. But because it's like colloquial slang within the African community. It's like, oh, right. You don't really get that.
And maybe social media has started to bridge some of those gaps because nyash. I saw Damson Idris say to Lori Harvey when they were dating at some point in a video.
Oh.
And that I saw that on Twitter years ago, and I was like, "Oh, okay, now I know." And
Diaspora,
the internet, and them. I mean, look, their relationship. That's like an example.
Yeah, true. He's
British, right?
British, but I
guess Nigerian. I want to say.
Period.
And she's Black American.
I would. I don't know a lot of. This is just a little. I don't know a lot of British Black people.
Personally,
I mean, I've been to the UK once, and I went to see a friend who was South Asian.
Right.
So, let me in. What you guys up to?
Hey,
I want to chat.
That one maybe more recently has had better representation in media. Like Supercell is a really great show on Netflix. Top Boy is another one.
Well, you know, black violence, black on black crime, but hey, we're on the TV. We are in it. Yes. But no, there's a lot. Even a lot of Cynthia Erivo.
Yes,
you know,
Queenie.
Michaela. What's her name?
Coel. Yes, I still haven't seen. I
May Destroy
You, which I've heard is amazing. Yes, that's why I haven't watched. I'm like, I gotta get my heart ready.
Right.
A very good thing.
Woo, the Black experience. Oh, right. Bringing us back. So we talked about representation in media, but we both work in media. Mm-hmm. How did you decide you want to be on TV? When was, because you wanted to be a broadcaster. Remember you showed me that thing when you were little?
Oh my gosh.
And you said you want to be on an anchor.
Yeah, since I was a little girl. You know, I there's two different memories that I recall when I try to think of like what made me want to do it, and like the first was both of them were seeing it done though, I guess, so that's an example. You gotta see it to be it. But I remember like watching Sister, another example of Black representation, biracials, but they are Sister, and Tamara, who was like the talkative twin, she gets a job as a radio host on when they're in college, at their college. And I remember thinking like, wow, what a cool job. Like, she's getting paid to talk to people. I should do that. And I think around the same time, I probably started watching the Oprah Winfrey Show after school.
Period.
Tyra Banks had a show after school. So the girls were doing it. The Black girls were out there at that time.
That's true. We did have great representation.
For a brief period of time, there was a little window where there was a lot happening.
Yes, even back home, honestly.
Yeah. And so I do remember seeing that, and then this was elementary school, so definitely like, you know, 2000s, like between like 2000 to 2009 at least. And so around that time, that was when I first saw that, thinking I wanted to be a talk show host. And my mom was like, well, you don't just become a talk show host, like you have to be a reporter, like a journalist first. Like Oprah was a journalist first. And so that's kind of, I think, like what initially set me off. But I always was a kid that loved reading, so I was always a big like bookworm. So it was in my same kind of like, because the librarian, I was like too talkative for that.
Right.
Like before I discovered, you know, journalism, I thought maybe I'd do that. I still want to write a book one day, so I used to think maybe that, but that's so much solitude. So journalism is a great balance for me of like having the socializing aspect of that I like of my personality, but also like writing and arts and like the literacy aspect of it all kind of ties in, you know?
Yeah. My experience was kind of similar. My mom worked in television, and my mom, I didn't even realize that I was kind of becoming like following in her footsteps until recently, but kind of similarly, I just love talking to people, and I love listening to people, and I like writing. And so I was in grade 11 when a friend said she was going to study journalism, and I was like, journalism? And so I looked it up, and I was like, wait, that's what I want to do.
Yes.
So I then got into it, and here I am.
Yes.
And I was not a great student in high school because I just wasn't in it.
Motivated?
I wasn't motivated. I grew up in a tumultuous home environment. The way that they taught didn't really resonate with me. And so I didn't really think that I would even like get the degree. In South Africa, you can pass with a diploma or a bachelor's degree pass. And so I was like, I'm just trying my best. But then I got a bachelor's pass. I was like, okay, slay. And then I applied and I got in, and I did so well academically in university because it was about
something
like
you were interested
exactly
in, about.
And it was the journalism of it all that was so
Yes,
motivating. And even the like English classes and the writing, I was like, I need these things to be good in the journalism part, so like do it. And then coming and doing my master's, and so I too have always just liked doing it, the talking and the writing and the all of that. But I also had great experience. I had great influences.
Yeah, like your mom was an
right,
example.
right,
Yes.
okay, right.
And that's like maybe could be rare because that's not, again, always the case in terms of like, especially on camera and like a visual medium, you know? Like we're not always seen as like the image of who should be doing that.
I mean, there've been jobs I've seen. The Guardian. I don't know if I can say this out loud. I don't know.
You can bleep it after
right.
if you need to.
The Beep had a job opening for like their like U.S. host, whatever. Okay.
A friend told you about it.
A friend told me. I saw a job online. Someone I know works at that company. I reached out to them about it, and they were like, "Yeah, you know." You would be a great like switch up because they're just gonna hire some white guy who wears glasses and wears a blazer, you know, like that's who they see when they think U.S. correspondent for whoever the publication is. But it's like we are still occupying that space,
and this is the global
and this
citizen.
This is the future, baby.
Get with 2026.
Get with it, okay?
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm so glad that you work. Can I say where you work? People are going to tag you. You know where you work. You work at CBS. And you are a bold, beautiful baddie. Black baddie.
That part makes, I was just going to say, too, like, having, like, colorful hair, having short hair, like, doing fun makeup, like, what you're wearing. There's so much that goes into it when you're doing visual stuff, like broadcast, digital, video, storytelling. So it's really, definitely, we're in a space of, like, privilege and yeah, I'm like grateful to get to do that. And honestly, when I first cut my hair, I didn't plan to do it long term, and I didn't know if I would do how it would be navigating the workforce, like with, you know what I mean? Especially as a Black woman, especially with very, very short hair. And I had it like in a little fro at one point, but I like it this as much as I have had it. So I don't know, you know, we'll see. But I think it's been so far good. I haven't really had bad experiences around that, so that's been positive.
And it's good representation.
I always get messages from people that specifically are like, oh, we love to see with your natural hair, sis. Like, I definitely get like messages from viewers. Or one time I had a story where there's these little kids, and a little Black girl asked me how I got the courage to wear my hair short. She was literally like, used the word courage. She was maybe like 9 or 10. I could not even believe it. So definitely they're watching us.
Yeah.
They're watching. Hi, girls. Hi, babies.
I'm so grateful that we get to be who we needed and what we could have aspired to when we were younger.
So true.
Shout out to us.
Be the change you want to see.
That's actually the closing question is, what has your experience been like being a young, ambitious Black woman in a world that is kind of like, don't do that?
Yeah. I think it's been overall positive. The biggest challenge, I think, is advocating for stories that like represent our communities, and I think that that's across the industry, like of just media, like with any pitch, right? Like any pitch, your boss is gonna be like, why do I care? Well, you know what I mean? And that sometimes is that can be the hardest part, because I'm like, of course you should care. To me, it's like a duh. And it's like, yeah, if I told you, or if I told my parents, or if I told my fiance, like they would be like, duh. But having to be in spaces that are not always our communities and are not always people who understand our perspectives, and advocating for those stories, I think, is the biggest challenge. Right now with my role, I'm getting to do a lot of like local stories. I'm getting to do a lot of like hyper-focused stuff. So that's really great. And I think that gives me a lot of freedom. And so far I've had a lot of encouragement and positive feedback in my new role and stuff. So yeah, I feel like that's definitely the biggest probably challenge, is just like really making clear why those stories matter sometimes.
Wow, that is such a good point. My whole thing is Black. My whole thing is Black in Africa. So that is a privilege. That is something that Thank you for helping me.
Hey.
Like,
and even then, don't you still probably have sometimes like specific, more niche stories, or you're zeroing in on something and it's not connecting, or something's not clicking about like why this is important,
why
you know?
it matters, or certain stories or people who I meet in my community where I'm like, I would really like to cover this person, and they're kind of like, but at the same time, I understand we're not a PR company,
right?
But it's like, this is an example of an African person in the diaspora flourishing, and we should want to support them and give them some sort of a platform.
Yes.
And so that's what I hope to do with this space and with other things that I'm creating, because I also am not talking down necessarily to my company, because it's a company, it's a business, they're trying to do what they're trying to do. It's not like me and my friends like, oh guys. But I love that I get to talk about so much about the community, and I'm learning so much more about Africa, and because as I explained in the intro, and I've explained to you, they don't really teach us about Africa in Africa. Like, I did not. Last night I was getting food, and this man came up to me whose eyes were half open and like smelt.
Of course.
And so he was like, where are you from? I said, South Africa. And I said, where are you from? And he said, Mali. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, do you know where that is? And I said, yes, I'm African. And he said, you can never assume. And I'm like, as much as I was annoyed, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair, because like, I'm sure there's some I'm sure there's some stuff in some places and some cities that I've never heard of and that I'm ignorant to. But like, it's big, you know?
It's a big place.
It's big. And another thing that's interesting about, just again, a side note, is last night when I was doing laundry, a Jamaican man came up to me and he was like, Wagwan, just assuming.
Wagwan.
And I said, hello. And he said, where you?
Hello.
What I do love, like, thank you for assuming. And he said, where are you from? And I said, I'm from South Africa. And he said, oh, I'm from Jamaica. And I said, oh, okay. And then he just started, and then he was like, when are you going to take me to? And it just like went a different direction. But what has happened is, since being here, Black Caribbean men will say, which island are you from?
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm from the big one.
Yes.
Actually.
The real motherland.
The big island. But it's like, it's so interesting that we all look the same.
Yes, you would never know until you talk to each other.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you know how many people I walk past and like, they're South African, and then they open their mouth and I'm like, oh.
You're not. My name being Haitian, or like, well, people mistake it for Haitian because it's a French name, because my mom is from Louisiana, so it's like Black American French Creole. And so I'll have like an Uber driver, and they'll be Haitian, and they're like, oh, are you Haitian? And I'm like, no, but we're cousins, probably. Like, what's up? So I love that though. I love that. That is like, I think, one of the beautiful parts about being Black, and about just like Blackness as a identity across cultures in the world, you know?
We all, for the most part, are so eager to connect and just find some sort of similarity, because that is the whole point. We are similar in so many ways. Our histories, separated us. Oh my gosh, not you wearing this Black History, Black Pride jersey. I just realized this.
I actually wore this on purpose too. When I was trying to think of what to wear, I was like, I want to wear a hoodie. Which one?
Girl loves a theme.
Loves
period. Wow.
How to dress the part. How to dress the part. This is a Black-owned brand as well. I'll find the name to link it for you.
We'll link it.
Link in bio.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, but I love that though. And it's that's honestly one of the exciting parts too about living in a major city as well. I think that like gives you that kind of experience of getting to like meet people from all over the world.
Yes, and now I live in the Bronx now, one of the 5 boroughs in New York City.
Shout out.
And it's largely Dominican and Puerto Rican people for the most part, and they're Black. Do you know how many times I've seen a Black person and they speak Spanish, and I'm like,
it's just a different stop on the boat.
Yeah. Fuck Spain, and like,
it was just another stop on the boat.
But I love Black people. We are just so interesting and cool and diverse, and we should just unite.
And then I feel like my favorite moments of living with you is when we would both show each other our super niche, like 5th grade favorite music video of something you were watching when you were growing up, something I was watching, and I'm like, but this is the same but different. So yeah, love that.
Okay.
Connecting.
Love you. Thank you so much for being
Thanks for helping me.
Okay, this is the first episode.
Can't wait to see what else you do. You're so amazing at this. So natural. Yes. I can't wait to see who's next and what else to come.
And you'll be back.
I'll be back. I'm going to be a recurring guest.
Regularly.
What is it on the Daily Show when they have the people that are there all the time?
Ooh.
I forget.
Resident.
Yes.
Resident.
Where they like rotate. I'll be that.
Baddie.
Resident Baddie.
Bye.
Bye. Yay.